The Sonic movies are probably the best thing to happen to this franchise. Their success paved the way for a lot of the content we've been receiving in the past few years. These movies won the hearts of so many people who would later become fans of the series. But from the perspective of a lifelong Sonic freak, how do they hold up? With the third movie coming out very soon as of recording this, I want to take a look back at what even allowed this third film to happen. So let's dive right into the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. The history of the Sonic movies goes way back, but the first time we really heard anything about this movie was the announcement in 2018. We were greeted by this poster. Sonic's teased design was uncomfortably human. He had realistic muscles, thighs, random generic shoes, and his eyeballs were sticking out of his face. We were left to speculate until 2019 when the first trailer released online. The trailer was met with an insane backlash due to Sonic's appearance. He looked disgusting, scary, and uncanny. This design has been bashed into the ground, and I'm not here to beat a dead horse. You know why this is unacceptable. And surprisingly, Paramount did too. The director of the films, Jeff Fowler, announced shortly after that they would be taking some time to redesign Sonic for the movie. That's a big commitment. This kind of thing is so unheard of that some people theorize this whole thing was just a publicity stunt to get more eyes in the movie. While I'm not a believer of that sentiment, it's not hard to see where these people are coming from. The fact that Jeff and the team asked for the money and time to redesign the lead character for a movie that was probably almost done is absolutely insane. But I'm glad they did. I absolutely love the new movie Sonic design. The separation of the eye wasn't something I was too into at first, but it's grown on me a lot. The same can be said for the blue arms, although they should do this with the eyes more often. With the movie having been out for 4 years. Damn. It's time to get into the nitty-gritty of this franchise and find out if they were even good in the first place. Right off the bat, I think the first movie is fine. It's a decent family film with very minimal Sonic elements included. First, let's talk about what I like here. Most people complain a lot about the human characters and kind of started to resent them after Sonic 2. But after rewatching this movie, I found Tom and Maddie specifically to be very likable characters. I don't know what it is, but they feel very different here compared to the second movie. Jim Carrey is perfect as Dr. Eggman, but you already knew that. I don't have to explain that to you. I really like the overall vibe of this movie. I can't really explain it, but just the feeling this movie gives off is very early 2000s. I like the costumes of Jim Carrey, especially the flight suit, and I really like the look of his robots. So now let's talk about what I don't like. First and foremost is the main character himself, Sonic the Hedgehog. Or actually, the lack of Sonic. Yeah, this isn't Sonic. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I honestly don't care. I share my opinions so that I can stop thinking about these things all the time, not so that you can agree with me. You can say, oh, stop comparing it to the game version, this is its own thing, all you want, and usually looking at something for what it is instead of comparing it to the better version of itself makes me like it a lot more. But that just isn't the case here. Just because something is a different take doesn't mean I have to like it. Sonic is a confident and cocky character who doesn't even consider himself a hero. Not a quirky, annoying child who spies on people in their homes and constantly makes pop culture references. Why does he do that? That's one of the worst parts of this character. Like, I swear, bro, this kid will just be like, someone better call Google Maps. And it's like, first of all, you can't call Google Maps. You even know what Google Maps is. And second of all, shut up. Yes, I am aware that this is a very nitpicky thing, but it just isn't funny. And you could argue, oh, it's for the kids. But I have two questions to ask you. Why do you think kids deserve bad comedy, and what kid cares about Vin Diesel and The Rock in 2024? I just prefer the game version. And I don't mean the modern version by Ian Flynn. That one is a different conversation. I mean the real Sonic, by the Japanese writers who care about his roots. Not to say that the writers of the movie don't, they were clearly going for something different, but that doesn't always mean it's good. It's been confirmed many times that Sonic will grow into the Sonic we all know and love throughout the movies, but I just don't see it. After seeing the way he acts in the trailer for the third movie, I really don't think that's gonna happen. This is the Sonic we're stuck with. I just really hope I'm wrong and he does act a little more like, well, Sonic. Anyway, the soundtrack of this movie is not very good either. It's not a bad soundtrack, it's a fairly fitting orchestral score, but for a series known for its consistently fantastic music, if you're telling me there's barely any game music at all, the most we get is like a piano version of Green Hill at the end, which, yes, it's really good, but that's it. The thing is, Junkie XL, the composer, wanted to use the original Sega Genesis sound chip to make the soundtrack, which could have been so cool, but someone higher up didn't allow it. I think Sonic's leitmotif is alright, but it's a very generic superhero theme and not Sonic the Hedgehog. Even though I'd prefer a more diverse soundtrack, I'm okay with it being orchestral. I just wish it had more game music in it. If you ask me, I think the soundtrack should have been fully rock. It's a very diverse genre, and Sonic has been known to bust out some of the best rock songs you've ever heard. But overall, I liked Sonic 1. It has quite a few problems, the biggest being Sonic's character, but it doesn't ruin the film for me. I can still have a great time with this movie, but it definitely isn't perfect, and I wish it was just more Sonic, because they weren't guaranteed to make a sequel. Until they were. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 released 2 years later on April 8th, 2022. I'll never forget going to see this movie. The hype was immeasurable. The end result is a movie that is still flawed in a lot of the same ways that the first movie is, but overall it's a marginally better film. There are a lot more Sonic elements here, and bringing those to the forefront was one of the best decisions they could have made. It really highlights a stark contrast between this movie and the first. We got the Master Emerald, the Chaos Emeralds, Tails, Super Sonic, and the best addition to this movie, Knuckles. In recent times before the movie, Knuckles had been portrayed as a bit of a blockhead, and that's just generic Western tropes getting their hands on our boy, because Knuckles has never been like that before. Knuckles has always been very street smart. Since in the games he lived on an isolated island his whole life, it makes sense he wouldn't be accustomed to interacting with other people. But that doesn't make him dumb, just gullible. Two very different things. I'm glad to say Knuckles has done very well in this movie. They balance out his fortitude and stoic personality with his gullible side, and that makes for some great humor. Overall, the humor is much better this time around, but there's still a lot of random references that don't make sense and just aren't funny. Also, the flossing thing may be annoying to some people, but I really find that funny, specifically because it's been in every movie so far, so let's hope we have a flosser in Sonic 3. Shadow, perhaps? Let's get back on topic. The action in this movie is very well done, and honestly, these are some of the best parts of the movie. A lot of Sonic media these days the IDW comics only portray action through just fighting, and that gets old really quickly. But this movie has plenty of action scenes that aren't just two scrunklies throwing hands. My favorite of which being the scene where Sonic is up against the natural elements as he tries to run across the water. That scene is just so cool. Just like my taxes, this movie is constantly pausing itself to focus on the human characters, which are much less likable this time around. The wedding subplot takes an unnecessary amount of time away from the movie, and it really feels like an obligation to do something with these characters rather than to benefit the plot. Rachel just isn't that funny. We've seen this stereotype 100 times in every other family movie, and it isn't any better here. The Olive Garden guy is awesome. I love him. As an Olive Garden lover, it's so funny to me that this guy's one and only character trait is that he loves Olive Garden. Like, that's his entire personality. Anyway, you already know how this subplot goes. It's way too long, and I literally got up to go to the bathroom during this because this is the point where I was like, okay, nothing's happening here, and I drank my slushy way too fast. Once Sonic and Tails head to Siberia, it starts to pick up and gets real good. A lot of people say Tails shouldn't have been here, and I couldn't disagree with that more. Sonic's arc in this movie is to learn how to be responsible, and Tails is here to give him somebody to be responsible for. It's quite obvious. I may not like Sonic's character, but at least he has a better arc this time and some well-defined characters to bounce off of. Tails doesn't do too much in this movie, but I honestly don't think he needs to. He works well with the screen time he was given. My favorite part of the movie has got to be the fight between Sonic and Knuckles in the Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 1. This scene highlights how much better the cinematography is here. I may not like the whole energy glowy effect thing Sonic has in these movies, but it creates some really cool lighting scenarios in this scene. The ending of this movie is pretty good too, although the whole Sonic accepts Tom as his dad thing is weird as hell. Super Sonic is amazing in this movie though. I love the fiery effect they've given him. It really makes it look like you could die just by touching him. After the credits, we get a short tease for Shadow the Hedgehog. Of course, we all know where that leads. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 has been a roller coaster of a pre-release cycle, and it's finally coming to a close. At the time of writing this, I'm seeing Sonic 3 tomorrow, and I'm super excited. But at the same time, I'm sad to see all this hype end. However, it's gonna come with a whole new cycle of hype and speculation for Sonic 4 once we see that post-credit scene. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for hearing my thoughts, and if you want to share your own take, feel free to comment down below. Just keep it respectful. As always, take care and have a super blessed day.